Hi everyone, Kate here in the first of a series that will be a year in the making altogether. I did say in my Reading Hopes and Dreams of 2023 video, I was toying with the idea of reading 25 books throughout the year, 25 Victorian books throughout the year. But I thought, I don't know, is it a realistic goal? But then talking with my friend Elizabeth, she said she was going to try to get to 100 Victorian novels, needing to read 27. And so we're doing an accountability program together, and we have some kind of reward and incentive for each other at the end of the year. And so now I feel very spurred on with this goal. And I thought a fun thing to do could be just do a little check-in after each Victorian novel. And so I have finished the first Victorian novel of the year. Now, granted, I will say I did start this in November and read or listened to 5 or 6 hours of it and then picked back up. And that is The Netherworld by George Gissing. George Gissing is one of those Victorian authors that keeps popping up that I think, Kate, if you say you're well read in Victorian literature, George Gissing is one that you really do need to read. And I had tried The Odd Women by George Gissing maybe 2 years ago, and I was very much enjoying it until there started to be such a frequency of characters having philosophical conversations together. And that is always, I just think it's such a snooze fest. I don't know how else to say it. That I would rather read an essay. So it feels like The Fountainhead, kind of just a lot being put in there as a chance to discuss philosophy, but to me, it just kind of falls flat when characters are having discussions like that. So I thought, maybe The Odd Women isn't one to try. And then I had heard people talk about The Netherworld. So I thought, all right, I will try The Netherworld. Especially, I was intrigued when there was an audiobook narrated by Nicholas Bolton, who is one of my favorite audiobook narrators. And there he was. So I read The Netherworld, and this was not the most fun reading experience. I ended up giving it 3 stars. If it had been shorter, it could maybe have gotten 4 stars, but there are so many Victorian novels that I am enjoying a moderate amount, but it's because they go on and on and on that my enjoyment is really decreased quite a bit. This also, it's interesting to me because it's called The Netherworld. That kind of shows you it's going to be in the slums of London. You're not there with the upper crust of society. I think maybe part of it is that I could have enjoyed this more if there was a kind of upstairs, downstairs feel where you are alternating between those 2 plot lines. And that is kind of a more typical Victorian device, right? You have different plot lines. You're hopping around between the different worlds. And it would be some relief. This had such an oppressive feel, and it's very intentional. George Gissing is doing that on purpose, but it's so oppressive feeling. Just terrible thing after terrible thing is happening to these characters, and it's hard. It's painful. So this was a book that I really pushed through. Typically, I DNF, and I just went so back and forth over whether to DNF. But I feel like on BookTube, when you dislike a book that other people like, you can't win. 1, if you DNF, then they say, oh, you didn't read far enough. 2, if you don't like it, then they say, oh, you didn't read it right. Or, oh, you didn't read the right book. So I do get really frustrated whenever I talk about a book that I don't like. I usually get 1 or 2 comments that are in that vein. And especially with Jude the Obscure, I knew it was going to happen. I got one that said, oh, no, you think Jude the Obscure is about this? No, this is what Jude the Obscure is about. That is your reading experience, and I'm glad that you enjoyed Jude the Obscure. I, however, did not. So my reading experience of The Netherworld, I am not saying what anyone else's experience is. So let's not get all up in arms when I didn't like The Netherworld and you love it. This is my reading experience. It was not a novel suited to my temperament because it was just so oppressively bleak. And it's interesting to think about The Netherworld contrasted with Elizabeth Gaskell's Mary Barton because there is very oppressive poverty in there. But I feel that this had such a fatalistic outlook that it's beating you over the head with it. Whereas Mary Barton kind of makes it feel like maybe there could be some hope at the end of the very long, very dark tunnel. So I feel like you can still show the realities of poverty, but give some more hope. And also, At the end of the day, the pathos of this felt very much like a Thomas Hardy novel, but in a Dickens setting with Dickens characterization. It's very much an urban novel, and the characters, pretty much all of them, felt like types and caricatures, not fully fleshed out, three-dimensional human beings. So I think I did come out of it appreciating the writing style. I do think it is a really interesting novel. It's a very observant novel, and it shows you kind of how dire it can be to live when you don't know when food is going to come on the table next. So I do think it just really had an axe to grind, though. He's commenting on this, and the poverty, that George Gissing saw, I'm sure there's a reason he's writing like this. But as far as a reading experience goes, it's not really what I enjoy in a Victorian novel. I don't mind the pain or the ache being there. Like, George Eliot has some very sad things. Elizabeth Gaskell has some very sad things. But there's some kind of redemption and dignity there by the end. So I wasn't drawn to any of the characters. I didn't really feel that invested in the plot either. So here I'm saying this, I'm processing, and maybe one of the reasons that I finished it is because it, could count as my first out of 25 books, 25 Victorian books this year. I do know also January and February are the months that I'm kind of least likely to get into a reading slump. So I was feeling a bit more generous with continuing on. And now I can say that I have read a George Gissing. Maybe in a few years, I will try again with The Odd Women. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it. But I do like that, it's a very serious Victorian novel. So I like that I, kind of got that checked off. But I have to say, it was such a contrast. His writing is very much not suited to me. And then at the same time, on my Kindle, I'm reading Chantry House by Charlotte Mary Young. And it is like night and day. It's just a sheer delight every chapter of Chantry House. And then contrasted with The Netherworld, which is just kind of the depths of despair. So I have read it. That is the first out of 25. Follow me on my journey, whether I read 25 in total by the end of the year. We're going to see. I do have many, many books I'm excited to get to. So I think the next two are going to be Chantry House by Charlotte Mary Young, which I said that I'm reading. Even though I need to be reading The Heir of Redcliffe, which my Patreon book club, we're discussing it in the month of February. I am so excited to have friends to read Charlotte Mary Young with. But I went ahead and did a dumb thing, and I started Chantry House just because I just want to read one chapter, and then she hooked me. So it might be another favorite Charlotte Mary Young, who knows? And then also a big audiobook project. I started Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope. So I'm finally going to be starting the Palliser series. This is my third try with Can You Forgive Her? And I think it's working. I think actually the right strategy was just to read a George Gissing beforehand, and then the Anthony Trollope seems very approachable in comparison. I think that's what happened. So I thank the Netherworld for that. And I did try the second time with Can You Forgive Her at the beginning of last year. I was going to read it with a group that was going to read through the Pallisers in a year. But I think I got very intimidated at the thought of reading an entire Trollope series in 1 year. And so then I just kind of was like, I can't do it. So now I'm going to take it on my own pace, and I probably won't get through it in a year, and I'm okay with that. So yes, I will be here. I don't know when to wrap up my next Victorian book. We'll have just a little sprinklings of Victober throughout the year. And in case you are new to my channel, Victober stands for Victorian October, and it is the most special time of the year on BookTube, just a whole month dedicated to Victorian literature in October. Yes, so that is everything. Thank you as always for watching. And yes, these are not academic reviews. They're my reading experience. That's what I will say. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.